r/AskReddit. What needs to be said on Reddit that nobody wants to acknowledge? A lot of people are way too fake nice on here. I used to be pretty open about my mental illnesses. And I still am elsewhere. But on here people are grossly over nice in an attempt to make themselves feel better. You matter to me, to literally anything someone says about their struggles with suicide and other similar problems. That isn't how it works. Then I sound like the bad guy when I point out that it's not true. Sure, someone might not like the general thought of suicide, death, mental illnesses, etc. But saying that to literally everyone trivializes it for people you might actually care about. But there's no real way to say it in that situation without being the asshole. I volunteer at a crisis call center. And this is actually something they tell us about in training. Basically, you can't just heap praise onto somebody who's calling to talk about their depression. It feels unearned and disingenuous. The truth is that for people who are in a really dark place, you often have to be willing to spend some time with them in that dark place. It's more helpful to offer reflections and ask questions, which make the person feel understood/listened to. Empowerment can be used where appropriate or after a certain rapport has been established. But a lot of people don't want to hear it. It's a little more complicated than I can explain here, but as someone who works with people struggling with their mental health, I agree with your sentiment. A notable number of contributors here are people who think of themselves as depressed and underachieving because they have been screwed over by life. By coming here, they just reinforce these ideas that they have no responsibility or agency in and for their own life. They seek solace here, but it only makes their problems worse. For most people, this is a place to stop by to see a funny video of someone falling on their ass. But for the folks I'm talking about here, Reddit becomes like a lens that focuses and concentrates all their negativity into something stronger and much more toxic. I screwed myself over. Nobody else is to blame but me. I'm a little of both myself. On one hand, some of my problems are definitely my fault and no one to blame but me. On the other hand, I've had a few really hard life-changing knocks that are completely out of my control. So I'm in a constant state of internal warfare over feeling like a victim and grabbing life by the balls and pushing forward. Most people don't work in it or tech. 34% of high school graduates never went to college and blue-collar workers do exist. Reddit is very career oriented. People tend to duck around on the internet. In other news, water is wet. That you don't need to thank that kind stranger for the gold. I just don't ducking understand. Or thank people for a bunch of upvotes. Nobody cares. This isn't the Grammys. Can't believe my most upvoted comment is about slicing off my peen. Lol. The fact that the site is less popular with women and minorities creates an echo chamber where opinions that might otherwise be unpopular with women and minorities can nonetheless be well received on the site. This makes ideas that might even be considered repulsive to women and minorities find success here, which in turn makes it a less welcoming place to women and minorities, which in turn makes women and minorities less likely to want to use the website. It's a self-perpetuating cycle. It's why the only places you'll find large numbers of women and minorities are heavily moderated subreddits specifically intended to be forums of discussion for those groups. A lot of users on here seem very misogynistic. Cause they are. Reddit cares more about how something is said and who says it than the actual content of the message. Reddit has real world consequences. Like what? Internet addiction and subsequent mood disorders. The Reddit hive mind is effectively the mind of an arrogant edgy teenager who hasn't experienced enough of life to know jack shit. That's what gets me. I see some reasonable arguments on here, but I've seen some hit on here that makes me wonder if I'm just surrounded by sheltered young adults. I can't tell you how many people on here say hit, where I think that's not really how the real world works. And when you point it out, like say salaries in the workplace or something, you get downvotes because the status quo, real life, isn't fair. No, it's not. But it's also real life. Downvotes and insults because you don't like real life is just silly. And then that prevents people from explaining how real life works, and so the bubble is formed. That not every story needs to end in marriage. So, I saw that my boyfriend had texted one of his FR. Break up with him. Also, I wish people would take more people's stories with a grain of salt. Even if they are trying to be fair and objective. You're only ever going to get one person's perspective. And 99% of the time the story will be skewed in their favor. I literally got blasted for pointing this out last week. Hundreds of downvotes, just for suggesting people shouldn't jump to conclusions. Ludicrous. Reddit often feels like a support group for people living vicariously through others. We are quickly becoming the boring, ignorant, emotionally stunted adults we looked down on in our youth. I can't exactly put my finger on it, but there seem to be quite clear signs that Reddit's demographic is shifting inevitably towards middle age. Remember when atheism was on the front page? Nowadays it's lots of wholesome memes / look at what my kid drew stuff with a shift towards more conservative viewpoints in general. Also, Reddit in general likes to think it's more socially progressive than it actually is. The downvote button is in fact a disagree button, no matter how much people like to pretend it isn't. I downvoted to disagree. Wait a second. Life only gets better when you make it better. What about if you win the lottery? In many cases, winning the lottery is the trigger for a lot of nasty things in life. Family can turn against you for your money. People become harder to trust. And the temptation to spend on frivolous things is very high. Read stories about what happens to people after they win the lottery. They rarely turn out the way people expect. The pattern seems to imply that once you've gone beyond your financial need to maintain basic survival, more money means more responsibilities and more problems, so long as you intend to maintain and grow that supply of money. At least. Honestly, we like to make fun of Tumblr here, but we are at least as bad as they are. And, not just because of the hive mind. Tumblr and Reddit really aren't that different. You can pick and choose the content you see, so it only ever reaffirms your opinions, and never challenges idea. Yeah, but at least we are not feminazis, am I right, guys? The amount of karma whores on this site is too damn high. But my magic in it points. Someone else referred to karma as asshole points, and it has stuck with me ever since. I rack up a bunch of karma and use it to be a hithead later on. You are being surveilled. You are being monetized. Almost everyone knows this. It's 90% how social media sites make $. Also, on sites like Reddit, we are just being monetized. Not surveilled. Not surveilled. You sure about that, man? The Warren Canary went a few years ago. Which literally means some government, likely the US, has asked for user information. Hitty but funny comments get way more upvotes and replies than genuinely helpful and good answers. Therefore they are the top comments, even though they are hit. On a personal level, I have written long, carefully crafted and researched, edited, insightful comments and there is no response. Not even a negative one. Or, I can write some low effort bullshit, like he was the Comcast of his time, and get thousands of replies and pats on the back. I'm trying hard to maintain my own accounting of what is worthwhile, and what is throwaway nonsense. Karma is pointless. But I was told that when my account dies I could have access to a better Reddit. That's how they get you. Your account doesn't die. I don't care that you broke your elbow. What if you broke both your arms? That most arguments on Reddit begin and end with so many logical fallacies that it's like watching two retarded kids fight over a muffin. I don't come here to be serious. I come here to get that duckin' muffin. Religion isn't the stupid flu. Greed and charisma are. The groups everyone hates on worship the person in charge, not the philosophy that is supposed to unite the organization. Exactly. My past 15 comments have been arguments against people who treat all forms of religion like it's the ducking devil, and I'm absolutely sick and tired of me having to explain to others that most important religions are about love and forgiveness, and that just because your parents mistreated you as a child and they just so happen to be religious doesn't mean that all religious people are like them, like duct you every thread. I go on I'm being assaulted for being a religious person, and sometimes I consider leaving Reddit because I go on subreddits like r/NBA which are about basketball, not religion, and even there I'm getting downvoted because I say not all religions are bad. Man, what the duck. I was a Reddit lurker for a few years before I ever created my account. I was reading through the sub for my hometown when I read a thread posted by someone new to the area looking for a church. Moonbase 1089 was created, and I replied with the details of our location, service type, doctrine, and offered encouragement in finding a church, even if they didn't try ours. I was initially downvoted hard, but the comment finally leveled out at +1 after some time. I was disappointed that so many people would actively try to derail another person's attempt to find a church while having nothing at stake in the conversation. Having been an active reader of the site for some time, I wasn't entirely surprised at the reaction. I just want to show the world some love, man. No social, economic or political issue in any country is simple. Your solution is not the answer. If things were so easy to solve, they would have been already. Trump is not Hitler, and conservatives are not Nazis. You can disagree with them without them being fascists. Bernie is not Stalin. Democrats and communists. You can disagree with them without calling them fascists. Yeah, but we are on Reddit. No one is saying that. The site doesn't allow for opposed views or thoughts. It plays into the groupthink thing. Anything that is disagreed with is instantly downvoted into oblivion and won't remain on the site, nor will it show a contrast between upvotes and downvotes. Edit. I never learned grammar. If you say you're from Scandinavia, Australia, or Canada in a political conversation, you will automatically get upvoted in a political conversation. I doubt anyone will read this, but it needs to be said in this thread. Most of the posters here are under 25 and have no idea of how the adult world works. Get a job and pay rent is all I can think of about the adult world. Care to enlighten us? Edit. I never learned grammar. But the adult world to me is, the world does not owe you anything. You can work your ass off and still get hit on. Most things aren't a big deal, so don't be so offended. Most people aren't jerks, they are just clueless. You're not ducking special. It gets harder to maintain friendships. Managing your household/bills/regular chores effectively takes too much free time, especially if you work full time. Sometimes you really do have to just shut your damn mouth and do your job, even if your boss is an insufferable ass. That last one is really hard if your boss is also a moron. But that's life. Oh. And be really careful with your credit score. And try not to drive like a maniac. There's a lot to juggle. Oh yes. And you gotta start being nice to your body. I mean, being an adult is great. But you can tell when young people talk like they have the whole world figured out. No judgment though. We've all been there. A lot of you need to understand that an informal discussion doesn't require evidence. I should be able to casually discuss my opinion on a subject without having people abuse me and demand a list evidence to prove my opinion, no matter the subject. Like they expect footnotes or something. Most recent example was that I said I thought a certain type of meat was healthier than another because of a lower fat content. Mind you, I didn't give advice. Just agreeing with a comment based on what I've heard from friends and family. I received days worth of abuse, spam and hate PMs. What the duck? I didn't go into that thread looking for an argument. I was in a good mood and just commented on something relatable to my life, yet people took it so seriously and got so upset because I didn't include a bibliography of links to evidence. At the end of the day I looked it up, and I was pretty right anyway, lol. It was just until. I mean, come on. I agree with you. I posted once on a thread about cars saying something along the lines of a rebuilt engine having to be treated like a brand new engine, nice and slow until the first oil change. I got all kinds of hit for it. So I looked up some supporting evidence. Apparently racing engines aren't reasonably close enough to regular engines to be treated the same. Spoiler, the break-in process is identical for both. People seem to just take any chance to vent their anger. I just don't get why everyone's so uptight about so many subjects. I saw someone losing their hit in shower thoughts the other day because someone used the word evolution in place of natural selection. Like really? Who cares? It's the shower thought, not a scientific journal, haha. There's just so much pent up anger. It's intense. There are a lot of not racist, but methodicas on this site. Like they expect footnotes or something. Diet racists tend to slide under the radar. As a brown person, I definition second this. Marginal, or margarine, racists seem to thrive here. I imagine it's the perceived anonymity. Just set the butter out and get it over with. I was in a good mood and just commented on something relatable to my life, yet people took it so seriously and got so upset because I didn't include a bibliography of links to evidence. At the end of the day I looked it up, and I was pretty right anyway, lol. No one likes to be called out. Even if you slightly imply that something could be perceived as racist. I agree with you. Or colorist. I got all kinds of hit for it.